Steve, and hey, it's March, so that can only mean one thing. It's almost time for the NRL season to start. Again, this afternoon, we see the Cronulla Sharks take on the Penrith Panthers. But coming up this Friday here in Campbelltown, it's the West Tigers at home to the Newcastle Knights, 6 p.m. at Campbelltown Stadium. And with me this morning is a special guest. It's one of the NRLW West Tigers players from last season, Sophie Curtain. Sophie, welcome to the Sports Academy.
Hi, thank you for having me on today.
Well, Sophie, you've grown up in Campbelltown. Can you just tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in Campbelltown, being a young female rugby league athlete in the community?
I think for most people, Campbelltown, is probably, not the greatest place to live, but personally I loved it. I think it has everything I guess I kind of needed growing up, and, it has a wide variety of cultures and backgrounds, and so that kind of broadened my experience and my understanding of different cultures and beliefs and ways of living. And in terms of kind of sporting and school opportunities, I wouldn't say it was better or worse than any other kind of area nearby. I think just being a female in a male-dominated sport was probably the limiting factor, not where I grew up in particular. But I think Campbelltown's great. I, was raised there my entire life, and I still live here now. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for various, career paths and various education opportunities, regardless of what other people might think.
Yeah, completely, definitely agree with that. I moved 2,000 kilometres from far north Queensland to live and work in Campbelltown, so yeah, not a bad place to live and work. Rugby league. How did you get into rugby league as a young girl?
So in terms of rugby league, I think I'm a bit of an outlier, particularly in the women's space. I started playing when I was 7 years old. So in under eights, I actually had this conversation yesterday with someone. I don't really remember, my intentions or ever really wanting to play rugby league. My kind of whole family is, rugby league fans, and, I had an older brother who played, and going down to the local football team. So I played for ESA or Eagle Vale St Andrews growing up, and, I was their longest serving female player and still am. But I went down with my brother and my mum one day, and before we left, I was signed up. I don't really have any memory of intentions of signing up before we got there, but, I haven't looked back, and I'm grateful I made that decision on the day. And then like I said, I haven't looked back, and, I've been playing rugby league ever since. So now it's about, 15 or 16 years.
Yeah, and you're still quite young, and I want to make that quite clear. You're still a young athlete, but when we talk about going back in the day, like even 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't this pathway for junior girls as there is now. So how did that start for you playing? Was there a girls team that you played with? Was it like an age group as it is now, or was it very different even only 10 years ago?
No, it was very different. So for those who don't know, I'm 23. Like I said, I started playing rugby league when I was 7 with the boys, so from under 8s all the way to under 12s. And for those who don't know, you can't play with the boys after under 12s. And so kind of at that, crossroads where I didn't know if I'd ever play rugby league again, or if I'd have to transition into another sport, or just have to be a supporter on the sidelines or a referee or something like that to stay involved in the game. But thankfully, the coach I had at the time in under 12s recognised my passion and my twin sister's passion, who also plays, and talent in the game. And, in his words, he didn't want to see talent go to waste. So he kind of collated a bunch of people who were supportive of the women's game from the club and from the local area, and started to develop the first ever local women's competition in rugby league and tackle. So I was, very fortunate to be able to play continuously up until now, whereas I know a lot of people growing up either didn't get to play at all beyond 12 or even before 12 because they were kind of, scared, or didn't really have much opportunity, or weren't allowed, or, thought they'd be frowned upon. Or just kind of not being able to play after that age of 12, like I said, because there just wasn't anything available. My coach and kind of everyone that he had helping created a, Western Sydney competition from under 13s all the way to under 18s was the first competition. So I was, 12 and 13 years old playing 17 and 18-year-olds in tackle rugby league for a few years. And then as I kind of got a little bit older, that split into 2 competitions. So it was 13s to 15s and then 16s to 18s. And then kind of towards the back end of that was when, rep pathways started to develop. So Tasha Gale started, and, now we have Lisa Fiola, and, I know some clubs, particularly the Tigers, have got like a Royal program going, which is, from under 12s to under 15s, leading them into, Lisa Fiola and those rep pathways all the way through to NRLW now. But like I said, when I was growing up and, in school, I played Opens rugby league in year 7, so I'm 12 years old, like I said, playing 18-year-olds both in school and on the weekend. But yeah, there was no kind of rugby league pathways at school or, you know, in sporting schools either. So I guess that's kind of how I ended up where I am. And, you know, towards the back end of that, I luckily started playing, you know, reps, and that's kind of gotten me to where I am today. But yeah, like I said, growing up, there were not many opportunities really for the women's space. And I'm very thankful for those people who kind of helped develop that first ever program to allow myself and other people similar in my position to continue playing.
Yeah, what incredible foresight from a coach to turn around and say, hey, we want to create these opportunities. As you say, don't let talent go to waste. So actually build a program and build it, and they will come, obviously. Why do you think it's taken so long for females to be recognised in the sport of rugby league and have the pathway that we have now through juniors through to NRLW?
I think it's a complex, I guess, topic or issue, and, you know, it's like you've mentioned, in the last 10 years, there's been an enormous growth in the game and the popularity of the game, particularly for women. I think earlier on, you know, you can't be what you can't see, and there wasn't anything for young girls to look up to in terms of rugby league. I think there was always kind of an interest in the game, but people kind of decided to play touch footy or Oztag or, you know, tag league or those kind of games just because, you know, it was more acceptable rather than playing a contact sport. I know for me personally, when I was playing, you know, with the boys, I was one of maybe 4 girls in the entire, I guess, tenure that I played with the boys. So obviously, you know, there weren't very many, and I think as it's become more recognised on media and, you know, on television, and, you know, these kind of pathways have grown. I think there's always been the interest there, and there's always been, I guess, kind of a desire for girls to want to play, but there just hasn't been the opportunity. And I think now, you know, with things like the NRLW and, you know, the Gillaroos and, you know, the Origin all being on TV and being available, like, you know, I can go to a club now and I can almost guarantee that there'll be a girl in almost every team. And, you know, most clubs will have a girls team all the way from 12s upwards. And so I think, yeah, like I said, it wasn't available for girls to see, so they didn't think it was an opportunity. And also, you know, there wasn't really any opportunities available at school either, so they don't really have a way of getting involved. But I definitely think, kind of, from people that I've spoken to who are older than me and kind of just missed the boat in terms of, I guess, the growth of the game, said that they, you know, they knew people that wanted to play but never did because they didn't see a point, because they'd have to stop when they were 12 and, you know, they may not ever get to play again. So I think that's probably why.
Yeah, I remember some of the stories. Was it Maddie Studden who played for New South Wales, and that amongst that first Origin group where they actually had to request time off work to be able to go and play rugby league, and rugby league was definitely a part-time, I believe it still is a bit of a part-time scenario, but having to ask for leave to go and represent your state, that's pretty, yeah, interesting, considering the boys get paid match fees.
Yeah, and like I understand, obviously, you know, in terms of media and bringing money in and things like that, there's obviously a big disparity between the men's and the women's game. It's only going to get better, and, you know, it's going to grow, and obviously the finances are going to kind of replicate that or reflect that in the future. But yeah, like even some of my teammates or, you know, people that I've played with or, you know who have played at that high level and are now retired, would lose money playing because they had to take time off work, they had to pay for their gear, they had to pay for travel, they had to fundraise, and so obviously they lose time there trying to get money to help support them to go over and play. You know, they wouldn't have money to get a simple thing like getting your name put on the back of your jersey, or, you know, having a simple uniform that you wear on the plane if you're, you know, representing Australia, or like you said, representing New South Wales or Queensland. And prior to, I guess, it being televised, Origin was called the Interstate Challenge or Interstate Cup. And so it was being played well before it was being, I guess, supported by mainstream media and supported by the general public. I remember going to Wynn Stadium when I was younger and watching the, you know, Queensland versus New South Wales. And, you know, like I said, the jerseys were, you know, really baggy and, you know, leftover and old gear. And, you know, I actually am, you know, I guess friends with Steph Hancock, who's, you know, a veteran of the game, and, you know, listening to stories of her talking about, you know, having to fundraise and things like that for the game, you know, only 15 years ago, or, you know, 10 years ago even, before it kind of became, I guess, what it is now.
Yeah, definitely great to see that it's changed and it's getting the relevance and recognition that the sport deserves. Now, talking about the New South Wales Blues State of Origin, it can be a sore point 3 times a year for me, being a Queenslander. However, I absolutely love watching, you know, both the Women's State of Origin and the Men's State of Origin, but even more so the Women's State of Origin. Now, you've had experience being a part of that first under-18 New South Wales State of Origin team. What was that like?
That was unreal. It was something that, you know, I'll never forget, and I was very grateful to have been selected in the team. I think that season. I didn't end up playing that much football in Tarsha Gale because I had a knee injury and spent a long time on the sidelines. Anyway, I kind of played the very beginning and then the very back end of the year. We made finals, had a pretty good year in the games that I did play, and I was selected to play in the Origin team. One being kind of the first opportunity that I've had to make history. I've been a part of quite a few firsts in rugby league for women's, and that was kind of probably the first big one. And so I like to rub it in a little, but as a New South Wales supporter and someone who's lived here and grown up here, we convincingly beat Queensland that year. And I think for the first 3 or 4 years, New South Wales won in that under 18s arena. But getting to be the curtain raisers, pun intended, for the women's game at North Sydney Oval that day was absolutely unreal. We got to go into camp a week before, and we spent time with the women's team as well, kind of, getting experience from them and, being able to ask questions and just bond and learn a little bit more about them as well. And obviously we looked up to them and, they were idols. So, that was really, really cool. And, it was the first opportunity, for players like myself to kind of mingle with players outside of your own team. Kind of guys have that opportunity from a younger age, but for us it was, it was really good to, stay in the hotel and kind of have those opportunities outside of the training paddock to kind of bond and, make friendships. And, I'm still friends with some of them now and, even teammates with some of those players that, I played with however many years ago now. So that's really exciting to kind of have that opportunity. But yeah, I think it was something that I'm very grateful for, and to even get to share that opportunity with my twin sister as well was, even more special.
Was there any particular player that year, or even being a part of that Start of Origin program, that you looked up to, but two, took you under their wing and said, hey, this is what it's like, come with me, I'm going to take you to where you need to be?
Not in particular, but kind of a full circle moment being, some of the teammates that I ended up having later on down the track that I didn't, think that would ever happen. Kezzy Apps and, players of that calibre, Bo Till, Betty Welsh, they were all kind of at the peak of their careers and, still kind of, representing their state and their country at that elite level. So, being able to kind of mingle with players like them, or even, from other teams, Samai Mataffa plays a similar position to me, Keely Davis, Quincy Dodd, those kind of players, to kind of just, share a room and get to speak to them and share their insight and just know that they're players, they're people outside of players as well. And as much as, I look up to them and, they're really exciting and I get to see them on TV at the time anyway, I was not playing with them as such, but, it was kind of cool just to chat to them outside of footy and know that they're, real people as well. And so that was probably the best part. And just seeing them, kind of have fun and, enjoy the experience and soak it up and, learn a little bit more about the history of the game, in particular the women's. Obviously, it's quite a short, official history, but like I said, they were playing Origin well before it was on TV. And so just kind of learning how much people gave up and, how much people were willing to work to make, the opportunities that are available now.
Definitely. And again, you, growing up, you were a student as well as an athlete at Eagle Vale High School. And we saw last week the Premier, Chris Minns, coming out and announcing that Eagle Vale High School officially as a sports high. How does that now feel for you, looking back and saying, hey, where was that when I was in school? But also, what does that now mean for, the athletes of the Southwest Sydney, especially the MacArthur and Campbelltown region, to have our own sports high school?
Well, to say I'm jealous is a little bit of an understatement. I wish it was there about 10 years ago when I was, starting high school. But, I think it's an amazing opportunity, not for, people like myself, but the entire community, as you said, the MacArthur region, the closest sports school or, opportunity in sporting endeavours in high school is, probably Westfields, and that's quite a fair way away for anyone who lives in Campbelltown. And that was part of the reason why I didn't go down that path and go to Westfields as a, someone who was pretty, competing at an elite level in, multiple sports and quite athletic at a young age. I had, many people kind of question why I didn't go to Westfields, and one, it was the distance and the travel, and two, it was also there was no, there was no rugby league at the time. I think they had a union program, but there was no female rugby league at the time, and that was kind of my passion, despite playing every sport under the sun at school. And I used to have to get up to go to the gym before school, and then I'd go to school, and then I'd have 2 or 3 training sessions in the afternoon. So to be able to kind of collate that all into your learning environment and have the facilities and funding and resources and staff available to, I guess, allow you to excel in the sporting arena and school all in one place is really good. And, I think all of the kids who either were travelling to Westfields or, or other, sports schools that are outside of the district, I think it provides a massive opportunity. And Campbelltown or the MacArthur region is quite big, and I think, there would be a lot of people that would benefit from the school being in the area regardless of what sport it is.
Yeah, we definitely always refer to the MacArthur in the southwest as being an absolute goldmine of sporting talent, especially in juniors. So definitely excited to see the future of sport in the region. Now, when you're in school, as you say, you're involved in quite a number of sports. There was another particular sport that you're involved in that you're actually 3 times world champion. And let me see if I can say this right. I've had plenty of practice. Muay Thai?
Yes, nailed it.
Sweet, there we go. Tell us a little bit about Muay Thai and then your experiences, and especially being named world champion or winning the world championship 3 times.
Yeah, so I guess kind of going back to when I was around, 10 or 11 years old. Like I said, I was playing rugby league with the boys, and, the uncertainty in my future in rugby league kind of played on my mind a little bit. And so I decided that, I wanted to take up a martial art. I guess when I didn't get to continue playing footy, at the time, obviously, I didn't know that there would be an opportunity for me to continue playing. But I had a family friend who knew the owner of a Muay Thai gym that was near my house. So I went down and, fell in love with it. Outside of footy training, I spent every afternoon there and most Saturday mornings there for nearly 8 years. So, I definitely fell in love with the sport. And so I started training when I was around 10 years old. Like I said, fell in love with it, was there as much as I could. And by the time I was 12 years old, my trainers kind of recognised that, I guess had a potential or they could see a future for me in the sport. And so I started competing at 12 years old all the way up until I was 18. And I guess kind of in those 6 years, I had 25 fights with a record of 21 wins. I represented Australia 4 times. I won 4 national gold titles or 4 national gold medals, which allowed me to then compete at the World Championships. From there, so I represented Australia the first year, won silver, and then the next 3 years I won gold medals back to back to back. And then I guess kind of on the back of that, in between of those things, I won a couple of belts, and I had fights on shows here and there. I spent a lot of time travelling to Queensland because I guess the junior competition wasn't quite developed in New South Wales, and there's certain rules and politics and stuff involved with that as well. But I spent quite a bit of time travelling to Queensland and Canberra and Thailand to compete, which is where the World Championships were held in Bangkok. So I guess from 2015, 16, 17 and 18, I spent a month in Thailand every year competing at the World Championships. And there's a lot of, I guess, pressure that comes with that, but I was good at it. I loved it, and being quite a competitive person, that I loved kind of chasing the gold medal again. And winning it once can be seen as a fluke or lucky, but winning it back to back to back when people are chasing your tail is a different story. And I guess I just wanted to prove that. And there were lots of trials and tribulations in that kind of career, with injuries and juggling, I guess, weight, and being a twin. My sister and my older brother also competed internationally as well, so we kind of had to juggle that aspect. But I guess kind of going into the later years, I was quite experienced, having represented my country on multiple occasions. I won various awards for being the best female athlete in the Australian team, and then in my last year at the World Championships, or the Junior World Championships, I was awarded Australian team captain, and I also won the best female athlete of the competition because of, I guess, my consecutive wins at gold. And they were all in various weight categories, and the way it's kind of split up is in their age brackets, and then there's weight categories within those. And like I said, being a twin, and you kind of have to juggle the weight category part, and you have to compete against the other winners. And Australia was quite good at Muay Thai, and we were quite successful every year, and always had one of the biggest teams. So it was a pretty, I guess, difficult to even get yourself to the World Championships, let alone to win 3 consecutive gold medals.
Yeah, definitely. To win it once, as you say, is a challenge in itself. To come back and win it the second time, was there ever in your mind, hey, I've won it twice, that's it, I'm done? Or was there ever a case, and I think when you talk about having a twin, you're saying, hey, tag, sub in, can you go do this fight for me? I'm done, I need a rest.
No, I wish that was the case, but we were both quite successful. So my sister Emily won a couple of gold medals as well. 1 year she couldn't compete because she broke her hand, but we were both kind of had a very similar record and a very similar, I guess, I guess status, if you will, in the Muay Thai world and in the female space for Australia. We were, fighting similar people because we were obviously the same age and, similar weights and things like that on one-off competitions. But in terms of nationals in the world, we had to stay separate and, fight for ourselves. But going into the last year, I don't think I ever thought that I wouldn't compete. I knew that it would be my last year as a junior. And so I kind of really wanted to, make myself a name. And, I think I'd already done that based on my performances in Australia and winning the previous 2 gold medals. But, I think kind of as a final statement, I definitely wanted to go back. And the third year was, I wouldn't say it was the most special, but it was definitely much more of a challenge than the first 2. I, had to go up a couple weight categories. I went into the World Championships having a pretty broken fight camp. I actually injured my collarbone playing at the New South Wales Touch tournament like 6 weeks before the competition. So I, had a very scattered training camp. I couldn't really do much with my left arm. And so going into the competition, I felt very underprepared compared to previous years, but, I still managed to come out on top.
Fantastic. Now, and you're talking about all this happened between... Actually, I should ask, did you ever have to fight your sister?
No, not compete, but like we would train together every day, 6 days a week for, 6 or 7 years. So we definitely sparred each other all the time in the gym, but like never compete against each other. There was actually a rule in place that like didn't allow that. So at nationals, you couldn't have 2 people from the same gym compete in the same category. Right. So regardless of even if we wanted to, we couldn't. They'd have to separate us.
So no official fights on the world stage, but certainly lots at home in the growing up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna share the record, but just know that there was a few at home, but actually no, I will. I've won all of them. Just need to rub that in, but only actually surprisingly not that many. Considering what you probably think, but yeah, it was always kind of fun. Sparring each other at training and off. Actually, it kind of got a little bit annoying towards the end because we were both so good. We just kind of clashed because we knew what we were going to throw and you could defend it really well. And so it kind of just, we kind of avoided each other in sparring, to be honest.
Maybe not such a bad thing on Emily's behalf by the sounds of it.
Oh, no, she was definitely good as well. We have very different styles in terms of fighting. So, we had our own strengths.
Now, Muay Thai and obviously rugby league comes with its injuries are a part of the game and a part of sport. How have you gone recovering from injuries and I guess the mental side of things after being injured to be able to come back?
Yeah, as you said, I've had my fair share of injuries. I've had plenty of stitches, plenty of bruises and bumps and cuts and broken bones and torn ligaments. So I'm no stranger to, the, grief of being injured and dealing with that. But I'd say, if I had to give any advice or, help someone who has become injured or kind of how I approach recovering from injuries is setting really small goals and probably realistic goals. I have a little bit of an advantage having access to, high level recovery equipment and, medical staff and, support staff at the club and, in footy. So, that's kind of a blessing. But like I said, setting really small goals and really realistic goals and celebrating those small wins, like looking day to day to make up the week and then the week to make up a month and then the month to make up, the 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or if it's, unfortunately an even longer injury, just kind of taking time to grieve the loss. It can be, pretty upsetting if you get a long-term injury. So accepting it, having a bit of a, meltdown to let it out. And then, like I said, setting small goals, celebrating those small wins, making sure you have a good support system around you, whether that's friends, families, partners, your teammates, and medical and support staff. So ensure that you have like the right support and physios or surgeons or, doctors in your corner. And then as well, I think having interests outside of rugby league or outside of whatever sport you're playing. It took me quite a long time to learn this. And, unfortunately, I think a little bit longer than it should have. But I think, definitely having interests outside of your sport, because once that's taken away from you, it's really kind of hard to know who you are and, know what you kind of value and, what other hobbies you have. So I definitely think that's a really good way to kind of mentally take you away from the injury or from, whatever you're going through in terms of sport. But I'd say definitely pick up some hobbies and have, some outlets outside of your sport and ensure that you're kind of staying involved with your teammates or with your competition base, because, it can be quite isolating being injured or being away from the team doing rehab. So do your best to kind of stay social and, you know, engage with your teammates where possible. But yeah, I'd say that'd probably be all of my tips. But on top of that, like, I'm quite a competitive person and a very driven person. So for me to kind of come back from injury, I was always very diligent with my rehab and kind of making sure I nailed those day-to-day goals to ensure that I got back in time. And as I said, having access to quite a luxurious medical, I guess, team and you know, support team, I was able to have the right systems in place to ensure that I did, I guess, kind of come back from, you know, those general targets.
Yeah, and it's very interesting you're saying some great tips in there. The first one that really stands out is you said actually grieve the loss. Actually take the time to go, hey, I'm injured. This is going to take some time. Because a lot of times, I know as a coach, you're like, oh no, we've got an injured player. Okay, how long is it going to take? Can we get him back? How do we make this process faster? But when you say you actually take the time to admit and own that, yes, you're injured, yes, you've got that break. That's some great advice, especially for young athletes, that, hey, these things do happen. It's a part of life. It's a part of growing up.
Yeah, and obviously, sorry to cut you off, but it's obviously, you know, it sucks that's an understatement. You know, I've obviously had quite a few injuries myself and some more long term than others in terms of recovery. But yeah, I think, like you said, in the coach's perspective, it's you know, okay, we need to then focus on the team and who's going to replace them or how are you going to move around positions, and that's all well and good. But I guess being the athlete or being the individual that's it's hurt, you kind of feel like you can easily be forgotten and things get moved on, which in a fast-paced environment like a sporting environment, particularly at the elite level, I think, yeah, probably just grieving it and sitting with it and then going, okay, I've accepted it, now what can I do to get back, versus kind of just pushing it to the side and ignoring it and then have it explode, you know, in a couple of weeks or, you know, a couple of months when things potentially might not be going well, or, you know, it's I think a valuable tool in being able to just sit there, I guess, kind of look at things holistically and, you know, is there anything that you could have done better or to avoid it, to have avoided it, or, you know, how can you kind of improve yourself? Or, okay, if you've injured your leg, how can I then improve other parts of my body? Can I do upper body gym? Can I do off feet con? Can I do skills work or work on my mental strength, or, you know, work on my IQ or my tactics in terms of, I guess, doing video and asking questions and those kind of things. So as much as it is devastating to be out, I definitely think it's an opportunity to improve or to work on other things.
Yeah, and you said there, and it's, again, studies have shown that those athletes who stay connected or can remain connected in a team environment, even with the injured, actually recover quicker because of that social aspect, because they're being seen to be cared for. So again, yeah, great advice, again, for the athletes and more so parents, because it's quite easy for a parent to say, oh, you're injured, I'm not going to take you to training. No, still take them to training, because that being in that team environment is going to help them recover quicker and be a part of the team. And it's not so much about making sure you can see the drills that are taking place, it's the social side of it, it's the mental aspect and that health as well. Now, you mentioned picking up other hobbies. So during COVID, or that wonderful word we love to use, were you in the bubble environment with rugby league during that time?
No, so at the time of the bubble, or the first year, so in 2020, I was only playing reserve grade. So I was working at a gym. I had deferred uni. So I graduated high school in 2019. I deferred uni a year because I wanted to focus on footy and, you know, do some traveling. Clearly that didn't happen. And, you know, obviously if I had a crystal ball, I probably would have gone to uni that year. But as I said, no one knew what was going to happen. So I spent most of the year kind of at home by myself because the rest of my family was still working. So I worked at a gym. Obviously I wasn't able to continue working for most of the year. I tried to keep myself as sane as possible, but there's only so much Netflix and stuff you can watch. Thankfully, I had access to some, I guess, gym equipment working at a gym, so that kept me a little bit more sane. But to say I was a nuisance when everyone got home from work was an understatement. I ended up doing one of the free TAFE courses that the government provided as well to kind of keep me busy for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. But I wasn't exactly in the bubble, but yeah, I was pretty isolated.
And then obviously when you went to university, you studied nutrition?
Yeah, so the second year of COVID or 2021 was when I started uni, and that was kind of, it wasn't entirely online, but I only had to go into campus like once a fortnight. And so I'm still doing, but I started a Bachelor of Nutrition and Dietetics honours at the University of Wollongong. And so it's taken a little bit longer to finish the degree than what I would have liked because of footy and kind of juggling all of the subjects and prac and research and things like that. So I haven't fully graduated yet, but I've done pretty much all of the clinical, I guess, content in terms of the degree, just have prac and research left. But doing uni online, I actually kind of enjoyed it. It gave me, I guess, a few months to slow down and, to be able to get a little bit more sleep, and I guess kind of going back to that social part of sport, I was still able to go to training. There was rules around that and, regulations that we had to follow, but, I was still able to do a little bit of socializing. I didn't really get that opportunity at uni, but like I said, I kind of reaped the rewards of being able to, sleep in a little bit more, not have to travel as far, because, I was traveling quite a lot for football. And so I am, I guess, pretty driven, as I said earlier. And so doing the work at home wasn't really an issue. I kind of found it pretty easy, and, especially exams and assignments and things like that, I didn't struggle too much, whereas I know some people kind of prefer that hands-on learning and kind of in-person learning, which is fine. But yeah, personally, I didn't really struggle too much with it. I definitely think it would have been beneficial to have a bit more social life at uni in those earlier years, but as someone who's been an athlete their entire life, their social life has been limited to sport anyway, so that wasn't really too new for me.
And you say now this degree that you've studied is actually leading to Sophie Sports Nutrition as a business. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that business and what you provide?
Yeah, so like as you said, my business is Sophie Sports Nutrition, and it's at Sophie Sports Nutrition on Instagram if you haven't followed it yet. I'll be making a Facebook page soon, and developing a website and things like that in the very near future. Based on my sporting history, I guess that's kind of where my interest in nutrition started. Martial arts, obviously being a weight-based sport, and then rugby league, being pretty, I guess, important to have the right physique for your position and performance and things like that. So in my later teenage years was kind of where I really started to develop the passion and the interest in looking at that as a career path. So deciding to go to uni to pursue that was something that I knew would benefit me in the long run. I know rugby league isn't forever, unfortunately, and as much as I want to play for another 10 or so years and at that elite level, potentially longer, I think being a sports dietitian or a sports nutritionist in the future is a backup plan, because you never know what can happen, unfortunately, touch wood. But I guess kind of looking at my interests outside of rugby league, and nutrition was definitely one, and I've kind of used that education to support my own training and my own performance. But I guess what I offer in terms of my services being personalised nutrition plans, whether that's kind of like a weekly subscription service or performance plans for athletes or exercise enthusiasts. I offer educational presentations to sports teams and clubs and academies, as well as at high schools at the moment, and educational resources and pamphlets and posters and things like that. I also post basically daily on social media, and I'm looking to continue doing that for a long time and providing value there. So I guess that's probably a good summary of, I guess, how I got to where I am. Oh, and I've also done a certificate in applied sports nutrition on some of my time off from uni, just so I can start working in the field, because as we mentioned earlier, rugby league isn't a full-time opportunity for 95% of female players. So I needed to make an income, and I was juggling a part-time job in support work, and I'd kind of lost a bit of passion for that towards the back end, doing it for about 3 years, and juggling a business, support work, uni, and being a professional athlete was kind of taking its toll. So I really wanted to focus on my business, and so I have recently quit my support work job, and while I'm not at uni, I've really been pushing my business to grow, to support, I guess, my training and my sporting endeavours as a flexible remote option. Unlike support work or some other jobs, I can do this while traveling and do it online, and work with people kind of all over the country, and hopefully all over the world at some point.
I think it's so exciting to be able to have a local Campbelltown-based sports nutritionist who is an elite athlete, still playing sport in the high performance pathways, speaking to junior athletes about what they need. I know some of the dietitians that I've been to don't look like they've ever seen a full plate of food or played a game of sport. So being in that environment where you're talking about carbo loading, you're talking about weight cutting for particular sports in that to maintain weight for Muay Thai, but then you're also talking about bulking up for rugby league. To have someone who's been through all of that then share those experiences, what a great opportunity, and definitely well and truly needed in our region.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that I guess a lot of people could benefit from, whether you're an athlete or not. I obviously recognise the importance in fueling performance and in the sporting arena, but in terms of general health, it's also really, really important. And I don't think, MacArthur or Campbelltown in particular, has the best I guess, kind of health outcomes. And so that's something that I wanted to address as well. And, I guess kind of growing up around here, I know that it's probably a resource that's lacking. And so I want to be available for people. And also, like, I am quite busy with my sporting schedule and things like that. So I think that that's my point of difference in having that lived experience and not just the theoretical knowledge and reading a textbook. Like, I understand how difficult life can be, juggling everything and, wanting to perform in all areas of life, whether that's school, whether that's work, whether that's the sporting arena, or all of the above, like myself. And, my peers at uni or at school get to volunteer and do, free volunteer work. And, I unfortunately don't have the time to do that. So I guess me starting my own business, I, one, have the qualifications. Two, it's an opportunity for me to earn money and gain experience before I graduate. So that's kind of my, before I graduate. So that's kind of my, I guess, thinking, and it gives me flexibility for my training and my football, but it also, I guess, kind of provides value because I have that lived experience, and it kind of puts me ahead, or I'm hoping that it puts me ahead when I do eventually graduate, that I have all of this experience behind me working in the real world and working with athletes or working with general pop clients versus just, I guess, trying to squeeze in an unpaid volunteer role. And there's obviously a place for those, and I think that's very important, and if the opportunity comes up, I think I'd definitely do some work experience. But, for now, I think this is probably a really good opportunity. And, I also understand that I'm probably pretty marketable as well, being an elite athlete. So I'm trying to take full advantage of those things and kind of combine all of those things into one. And I think that's, I guess, what my business represents, or what I want it to represent.
Definitely. So when we do talk junior sport and sport nutrition, what are some of the myths or misconceptions that you've seen in junior sport? And again, obviously, no, you can't go into too much detail, but what are some of the things that grab you as like, no, that's a myth, or that's misunderstood?
Obviously, there's a lot of information available online, not all of it being true, unfortunately, but I think probably the main one being just underfueling. There's been this, I guess, rhetoric over the last, 10, 20, 30 years that you've got to eat less and, being smaller is better, and that isn't always the case, unfortunately, and, kind of having that mindset can have a lot of negative mental and physical health outcomes. So I'd say probably underfueling, and then kind of fear around certain nutrients. People kind of often fear either, fat or carbohydrates typically, but, there's a place for them and a role for them. And, if you're evidence-based or science-based, you definitely kind of understand the importance and recognize how valuable they are for performance in daily life and in the sporting arena. And then lastly, probably supplements. There's, I don't know how many supplements are available on the market, but, be in the tens or hundreds of thousands available, but there's only a small handful of supplements that are actually beneficial for most people, and they're the kind of 1% thing that we should be looking at rather than the first option. That's kind of the tip of the iceberg of what you should be doing to nail your performance and nail your nutrition. And I guess kind of most people probably jump to those things, first or second, when they're not sleeping well, they're not doing any recovery, they're not eating enough, they're not having a social life, they don't have any hobbies, not getting enough sunlight, and just have a poor diet quality. It's like, okay, you need to address all of those things before you will even get much benefit from supplements.
Excellent, great advice there. Now, you mentioned before you can't be what you can't see. How does it feel for you being a young 23-year-old elite athlete running out with the NRLW West Tigers over the last few years? Now, of these young girls walking up to you, I'm assuming someone's probably asked you for your boots at some point, or at least for an autograph, or a photo or a selfie. How does that now feel, knowing that you were a part of that first group 7-8 years ago in that under-18 New South Wales Origin team, to now being at NRLW and seeing young girls like a 7-year-old Sophie Curtain coming up to you and asking you for your autograph?
I mean, it still kind of gives me goosebumps every time, and it's a very surreal experience. Like you said, I'm quite young, and there's people that are, I guess, much more experienced than me, or, older than me and have much more experience at that elite level. And for, I guess, someone to either, recognize me at the shops, which has happened a couple times, still blows my mind. People asking for photos. I had a young girl on Instagram reach out to me to do a quick interview, and I think she was 12 or 13 years old, and like, that's unreal. And I have had a few people ask me for my boots, but unfortunately I don't make enough money to be able to give those away. But I definitely, whenever I can, I try and sign anything that they want, or, take photos and ask questions. And, I think being at the West Tigers, that's probably a pretty big part of, I guess, their club culture is, engaging with the community. And we have quite a, I guess, widespread catchment, and being from Campbelltown and being a local junior and things like that, that's kind of something that I want to, instill in my other teammates, but it's something I believe is important as well, and representing my area and representing where I grew up and just owning that, and having, like you said, young girls be able to look at me or attend female only clinics that didn't exist when I was younger, and ask for advice, and whether it's life advice or kind of how to juggle school and footy, or tactical advice, or how did you get in the NRL, like what are the pathways for that for women. It's unreal, and I'll forever cherish anyone that asks me for a photo or a signature or just to have a chat, or even recognizes me at the shops or at dinner or whatever. So it happens, I don't know, not so frequently now that the season's not going, but when there's those opportunities for club days and at games and things like that, it's unreal.
And obviously the NRLW season doesn't start for a little while, and we still haven't heard whether or not you're coming back to the West Tigers, so hopefully they do. Hurry up and re-sign Sophie Curtain, guys, please, come on. We need someone like her in the team. But obviously the West Tigers men get to start their season this Friday night at Campbelltown Sports Stadium, 6 p.m. Are you excited for the season ahead for the Tigers?
Yeah, no, it's unreal. I think they've obviously, recruited quite heavily in the off-season, and, they've looked at new staff members and things like that, and so I think that they're hopefully in for a more positive season over the last few years. As we all know, they unfortunately, haven't done too well in terms of consistent performance, but I think, they're on the up, and, hopefully they're able to string a few wins together.
Do you remember 2005 being in Campbelltown when they won the premiership, what it was like in the streets?
No, I don't remember. I was very young.
I was very fortunate to be a part of that. So again, hoping that happens again. Hopefully this year will be great to go from a wooden spoon to a premiership, and obviously hope to have you back with the NRLW team when that gets underway later in the year. So ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Sophie Curtain today. Sophie, thank you so much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now, this is a bit of a music show, the Sports Academy. Is there any particular music genre or pump-up song that you listen to get you ready, either for a Muay Thai fight or for a rugby league game?
Surprisingly, when I was fighting, I didn't actually listen to music, which, a lot of, I guess, kind of my peers or my teammates or, other fighters that I knew did. And I do like I love music. I listen to music all the time. I have a pretty broad taste in music. I listen to everything from country to rap to pop to soul. So, I definitely think that, music is a very big part of my life, but surprisingly, I was able to just flick that switch when it was go time for fighting, and I didn't really need music to pump me up or to put me in the zone. Going into footy, I said, it's a, big part of the culture. Most teams kind of walk around with a big speaker and things like that, and that's definitely something that we did at the Tigers over the last few years. Traveling or not, we, had the big JBL speaker in the sheds, so if that wasn't enough, I'd put my own headphones on, and I'd definitely have a set playlist that I'd listen to that was high energy, but probably songs that stick out would be, Chris Brown, Eminem, or DMX, some old school stuff that used to really get me pumped up, but, a lot of high energy, even, house music or some pop or rap on the speaker in the sheds.
Fantastic. Well, once again, Sophie, thank you so much. Absolutely the best of luck with Sophie Sports Nutrition. I know the Southwest Sydney Academy of Sport athletes are definitely going to benefit from that throughout the year, as well as many school athletes and junior sport athletes across the region. And we can't wait to hear what happens with your NRLW future, hopefully with the West Tigers, but if not, I'm sure there'll be a lot of Campbelltown, MacArthur people support you wherever you go. So once again, thank you for joining us on the Sports Academy, and absolute best of luck.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else you...
Not that I can think of.
Cool. All right. Press stop. Hey!